Hello, and welcome to your Friday edition of The Breakfast Club. My name is Modias. I used to post videos on YouTube. I want to continue the discussion about Islamic extremism, jihadi terror, as brought up by Paul and responded to by Hayes and Brock Lawley, Nathan, and I think pretty much everyone on the channel, with the exception of, and I'm actually going to take some influence from what Serious Mind said as well, pretty much everyone except for JJ. And JJ, I think that your video was interesting, and if Paul chooses to invite me back, I'd love to take on what you said. So this is my 10th or 11th attempt at making this video. The topic is nebulous, and I'm not going to be able to cover even, I don't know, even a great percentage of what I'd like to. But I'm going to do my best. I've got some notes spread out, and pardon the sunglasses, I'm sitting on my roof at work, and I can't see anything without them, and I've got to be up here in spite of the noise because I will not be left alone long enough to make this video otherwise. So, I guess the first thing, and I think it was Brock who brought it up, I wanted to touch on the fact that Islam has not undergone the ideological pruning and settling that the older religions have, such as Christianity and Judaism. And I think that quite a bit of the violence will be thwarted when that happens. It'll, there will be fewer opportunities for extremism, and that the ideology itself will be more reasonable then. And reasonability is going to, prevent a great deal of violence and extremism, because the thought itself will be more, I don't know, sort of more nuanced and a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more accepting of itself, and maybe more inclined to look at itself, the followers of Islam, that is. Whereas right now, I think that there's a pervasive belief that they have a common enemy in the West and Western society and Western societal influence, and how that affects their daily lives. Also, I think that that may be part of the. I think that may be a big part of the solution to the larger problem, in that once Islam is forced to consider itself, its internal problems, such as the differences between Shia and Sunni belief, the problems and inconsistencies and so forth, they'll sort of cause the Islamic snake to start eating itself, and I think that's what needs to happen. I'm not really sure how we make that happen. I know that I have to agree with Paul that part of the solution there is going to be our getting out of bed with Saudi Arabia, and that's a big problem, because we have, we're continuing to sell them weapons. I think that we need to look at both sides of it. I guess, there's the influence that we have on the problem through our relationship with Saudi Arabia and other countries, and then on the other side there is, there's the sort of blame-making game that Brock brought up, and the fact that a large part of the problem here is at the heart of Islam as it currently is. Now, again, I think that once Islam starts looking at the internal problems, that the belief system ultimately will sort of gel and will become more reasonable, and reasonability will stop a lot of the violence, a lot of the extremism, a lot of the desire for violence. There's also the issue of violence on all sides being used as window dressing to deflect accusations of internal inconsistencies. Whereas on the one side, Islam is granted a common enemy by this window dressing. On our side, there is this need these days to be PC, and if and when political correctness is not encountered, the need to act as victims, to be offended by virtually anything. And unfortunately, when someone like myself or Paul or Brock or anyone brings this topic up and is accused of being Islamophobic, then that also takes away from the conversation, because we're inclined to stop and defend ourselves, because that's not what this is about. This is not about bigotry or hatred or fear. This is about wanting to get to the nexus of the problem so that positive changes can take place. And I think that that's, a lot of times there's just some unnecessary deflection. And I think a lot of the people doing the deflection know what they're doing. They know that as long as there is deflection, the actual problem doesn't have to be considered. And perhaps, in fact, can't be. I think that on the other extreme, when we, as Brock sort of suggested, take a united front, a united stand against Islamic terrorism or against Islamic extremism, we foster the perception of martyrdom within Islam, and that's a big problem, because that sort of gels this idea of there being a common enemy and Westerners and Western society, and the influence that we exert over Islam, or over the perception, or over our perceptions, or the perceptions of us by Islam. That was really difficult. I'm not sure why. Anyway, with ideology being an excuse or a backdrop for violent extremism, are we seeing people being dragged into violence by their beliefs, or are we seeing intrinsically violent people acting out their worst and darkest, having found ideologies through which they're provided an excuse? I'm not really sure. I think it's a little bit of both. I think that there are a lot of people that are brought in to, I don't remember who said it, but I saw some evidence a while back that suggested that most of the people who are in the extremist or violent outcroppings of Islam are mostly younger folks who are more new to the religion and who have not had the opportunity to experience any nuance, whatever little bit of nuance there is to be had at this point. I think that the current belief system is going to be, the current Islamic belief system will be greatly changed once it's undergone that ideological pruning, like I said earlier. I think that granting yourself an excuse, any excuse really, to engage in violence is kind of a slippery slope. I think it's a very slippery slope. And I think that's where we need to, we do need to look at the other side of what Brock was saying, as far as our influence on the perception of Muslims, especially the extremists, by our own actions, by not being more careful in our defense, not being more careful in who we bomb and why and how often. And because, again, I just keep coming back to this idea of martyrdom, and if Islamic extremists see themselves as martyrs, that's just going to gel their desire to fight, and things are going to become much more violent. They'll become worse before they become better. I'm going to look at my notes real quick. So, to touch a little bit on what Serious Mind said, as relates to this, I think we absolutely should engage with people we have vast disagreements with. I think that that's only possible if we can get past the PC whining and actually have a real conversation about what's going on. Avoiding engagement is very frustrating, and outside of the possible fear of being referred to as an Islamophobe, it's hard to understand the lack of willingness. I mean, especially here on YouTube. Are we here for the conversation or what? Partisan problems exist, and again, there's infighting about exactly what the problem is and exactly how the problem needs to be looked at. Once you get beyond the issue of professional victimhood, I think that discussion is, as Serious Mind said, also is of greater value than debate. And I think the nexus of all of this, as far as looking at this problem, solving the problem, it all has to do with nuance. you know, it's not the blacks or the whites, it's the grays. It's the vast gray area in between that needs to be looked at. And whether that's, you know, it won't provide for an immediate solution, but it will provide for a discussion which can, if we look at the long game, provide a solution ultimately. We have to be honest about and forthright about our intentions, and we have to make sure that whatever we're doing, you know, in this, guys, is leading toward productive discussion. I think that, I don't know, I guess I want to touch a little bit on what Nathan said as well. There is a financial bent to this. You know, on the one end, and it really all comes back to the military-industrial complex on both sides. Because if you look at just Saudi Arabia, for example, we are fighting. We are not fighting Saudi Arabia directly, of course, because we're in bed with them. But we are fighting. We're giving them arms, and they are in turn, you know, allowing for extremism and human rights violations, and it's coming back to bite us in the ass over and over again. There is an end for us in that most of the weapons that we're selling them we're also making, and there's an end for them in their ability to influence us based on the influence they have over our economy, to allow them to go much further with their human rights violations and their theocracy than we would probably let. I mean, I can only imagine than we would let any other nation with which we have any influence or relationship at all to go. And I think at the end of this, real information, honest information beyond the political correct sphere is something that will root out a lot of extremism. And I think that withholding that information, or or standing back out of fear of being called a bigot and the such like, fosters further extremism. Bad ideologies and bad actors. Corruption abounds on all sides. I think if Islamic extremism were the rule rather than the exception, it would very quickly take over our world, because 1 billion plus people organized behind a common goal centered on something as vastly influential as a religion would amount to a nearly unstoppable force. So this is rambly and kind of all over the place, but I think at the end of the day, what I want to say, the conclusion that I take from this is that we have to get beyond our little petty bullshit and have a real discussion about this. And I don't know if I've helped or if I've just made things more confusing, but I hope it was interesting, and I very much enjoyed this. I'll try to be a little bit more concise next time. I honestly was expecting I was going to come on and watch everybody's videos and wanted to respond to just one, but this is a massive issue, and I couldn't hold my tongue, so I had to respond to a little bit of everything. Anyway, Paul, thank you for having me on. I would love to come back if my video is sufficiently concise to warrant a re-invite. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.